Hey tubers, welcome back for another adventure. And what I'm doing is I'm dragging the LT125 to the backyard after the mega deal. Unfortunately, the tarp kind of blew off of it and it got a little snow on it, but hopefully some of that will shuck off as I'm dragging it out back. I haven't put all that much time looking into this one, so this thing's out of gas too, so it might just stall on me. let's see how we do. This is the hard part because it's kind of tight through here. Once I make it through here, I'm good. And I'm hung up. Yeah, I think the 300's kind of running out of gas. So close, within an inch. All right. Hopefully we're good. You know, the problem you run into in the winter, and it's cold, it's about 20, I don't know, some 22, 25, something like that. All this stuff is just a little more work. I mean, luckily for me, I have the toys to pull this stuff around. But quite honestly, without the 300EX here, I made it. Amazing. Without the 300X here, EX, excuse me, the 4-tractor 300, this would have been a lot of work, quite honestly, to drag this thing around. So anyway, let me get it loosened up, get it into the garage. We'll see what this thing looks like. Here we have the LT125 in the garage. I believe it's a 1986 from what you guys are telling me. And I gave it a hoot of starting fluid, and it kind of, as you pull the string with no throttle, I get nothing. Then you give it full throttle and you get nothing. Then you let it go and you kind of get one small pop out of it. So it appears as if I have spark, but this carburetor has many things that I don't particularly care for. First of all, the gas tank's in the back, which means you kind of have to use vacuum here to pull gas out of the gas tank. It has a gas pump that I've never really cared for. Kind of another thing to go wrong when you're trying to fix things, or you're running it and suddenly it doesn't run, and well, I don't have gas. What is it? Is it the carburetor? The float is hung up, I got dirt in the line, or is it because my fuel pump isn't behaving? So I don't like that extra variable. Then it's got things like this guy here. I think I'm showing it to you where my thumb is, where you kind of, this is so that you could kind of pull gas up to the carburetor. And as I was doing it, as a matter of fact, listen. So it's kind of doing its thing, but that didn't help it start either. Then you got this cable, which kind of comes up here. I think this is some kind of choke situation. I'm not quite sure what this thing does. More kind of a choke situation. And then obviously your throttle barrel going up and down. So I don't particularly care for these carburetors. Given that it looks like I have quite a bit of space, right? This is the timing chain adjuster. But behind that, it looks like I have quite a bit of space. I'm thinking of, this is also a Makuni carburetor. I don't particularly like Makunis. I'm thinking of trying to put something else on here. As I look at the intake manifold, I also see, I don't know if you guys could see that, they kind of put that gummy stuff. So off the top of my head, I'm just thinking of starting fresh with a another carburetor. Perhaps, you know, going with the adapter situation, and you know, a Honda Kevin, you know, 20 PZ29 clone. Also, one of my subscribers, cool guy out of Florida. There he is, Hazmat Motorsports. He just picked up a couple of LT160s, and we're going to try to figure out what it's going to cost. The plastic he has isn't this good, but it's better than the plastic that's on the LT160 currently. So I'm going to have to spend a few minutes on that to see if it wants to become a runner, and depending on what kind of runner it becomes, I might just have to look into getting that plastic up here. Plastic is expensive to ship, not that it weighs that much, but it's because you got to kind of put it in an oversized box. I would say to ship like these two plastics up to me, you probably need about 4 foot in that direction, 3 foot, and probably another 3 foot. So 3 by 3 by 4 or 4 by 4 by 4. That box, once again, because of oversized, it's expensive to ship. The other problem you have, because you have plastic which really has nothing structural in a box that size, if they put anything on top of it, the box is going to crush down and probably damage the plastic. So it's not really trivial to get plastic from Florida up here. To me, it's expensive. It's that simple. Back to the carburetor situation, I think what I'm going to do is take that carburetor off, measure the inlet I have right there. Depending on what I get, I might just measure the distance between the bolts and kind of make an intake. It would be a double flat flange, a double 2-bolter, so to speak, maybe with a curve, which would allow me to put one of those on. As one of those is, as somebody is considering that, but remember, you need enough space though, so that you can bolt the carburetor on this side and get bolts in this side, such that you can bolt it up to the engine. So yeah, it's gonna take a few. It's gonna take a little more thought and all. The other thing, I'm just looking at it and I'm wondering if one of the one of those 150s, the shoot, it's tough when the brain goes, guys. You know, one of those scooter motor carburetors that bolt, would slip right in there and bolt on. Just quickly, I haven't spent a lot of time looking at parts, but it seems as if the Suzuki parts cost a little bit more than Honda and Yamaha and Kawasaki, for that matter. And I'm not quite sure why, but it just does, where the intake manifold for that guy was like $8. I think they want like 35 or 38 bucks for this one, right? Just that little piece of intake. So that's another consideration. The little bit I've talked about the LT125 and the LT160. Seems that a lot of you guys had those as kids, and you you literally ran them and ran them and ran them and ran them until they were completely shredded, and then ran them some more. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of fond memories, and a lot of people really enjoyed the heck out of these Suzukis. For me, where I live in New York, upstate New York, Newburgh area, let's say, for some reason there just weren't that many Suzukis around. There was a lot of Honda stuff. It seemed like there was Honda stuff all over the place. I grew up in the days of the CT70, you know, the 50, the 70, the 90, the Super Trail 90, and the Mini Trail 50. So I grew up in those days, and there were literally millions of those around. And as a matter of fact, as soon as I got out of college and got a house, I immediately went out and bought up as many as I could. And then the Honda three-wheelers were everywhere. Obviously, the ATC, particularly the 200S, the 185S and the 200S, they seemed to be everywhere. And once again, as soon as I could, I bought up as many of those as I could find. It just didn't, you know, you know, even as you watch Craigslist and Let It Go, Facebook, whatever your point of buying, it just, there aren't that many Suzukis floating around. It seems that mostly it's the Honda stuff. There was one Suzuki out there that everybody kind of wanted when the quads were becoming popular, and that was the I think it's called the Quadrunner 230, the LT 230. It might have been an LT, might have been other numbers on it. It had a hand clutch, 5-speed kickstart. They were known to be a little cranky starting. I don't know if it was a carburetor or valve adjustment or all of the above, but frequently, I know of a couple of those, they were kind of hard to start. In my passing of collecting stuff in my day, I've run across several frames of those. Never found one with a running engine, so I'm not saying that they were all abused. I'm just saying that you know, I found a few frames without running engines, and generally speaking, I rarely ever see a 230 floating around. But that was kind of if you were after a Suzuki, that was kind of the I want Suzuki when I was collecting these things. Anyway, I'm talking too much, not working enough. I'm going to get that carburetor off and measure it. It's also cold out. I'm not quite sure how much longer I'm going to last out here. My feet are already starting to get cold, so 25, give or take a little bit, degrees. So I'm probably going to get that carb off, measure it, and kind of come up with a plan for this thing. Unfortunately, it's going to kind of roll off to the side for the time being because I'm not going to be able to get it running today. I want to thank everybody for watching and commenting and subscribing. Please remember to keep your feet down, your heads up, and get out and enjoy each and every day. Bye now.